Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man Podcast. My name's Rory Paquette. I know you know that. I just like to remind myself about how grateful I am to be sitting in this chair. Folks, you have absolutely come through like there is no tomorrow. When we went to 5 days putting out content, you guys all responded. When I pushed it and we went to 7 days, you guys showed up like gangbusters. It's been nothing short of humbling to watch the way you guys have supported our show. And I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart. If you're not out there doing what you're doing, I don't get to sit here in my seat and do what I'm doing. So thank you. Folks, if you're a friend of the program, and I know you are, you know what time it is. It's time to take a sip of my preferred beverage, pay a few bills here. Mm, man, good stuff. Ah, you guys all know what we're drinking. That's right. It's Freedom Hill Coffee. At Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up, check them out. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful. Just like my wife. They brew a mean cup of joe. It's an absolutely fantastic cup of coffee, folks. They do all the right things for all the right reasons. They support veterans, which is one of the biggest reasons why we support them. For all you folks out there who are veterans, thank you all for your service. We love you, and we're glad that you have found a home here with the Power Man Podcast. Folks, check them out at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram, Freedom Hill Coffee Company. Tell them Power of Man sent you. Let me get another sip of this so I can keep up with this young buck on the other side of the table from me. All right, time to go. Here we are. You're going to love this guest today, folks. I'm telling you right now. I had the absolute privilege of interviewing this gentleman on one of my other podcasts. He is home now. He's on the podcast that we have here on Power Man. And please welcome to the show. He is a podcaster, host of the Grampion podcast. He's an author, wrote the book Building Men, which you guys are going to hear all about today. And he is also the original Grampion. That's right. Grandpa, champion, married for 40 years, 5 kids, 18 grandkids. That's right. I said 18. I didn't stutter. Be ready. You're going to love the story. Please welcome Jim Tracy to the show. Jim, how you doing, brother?
Wow, Rory, what an introduction. Thank you, man. I'm grateful for the intro and for the upgrade.
For the upgrade. I love it. I love it. The last time you and I did a podcast, I think that pretty much the entire podcast was this. We're just like laughing back and forth, comparing notes. I can't wait to be a grandpa. I'm just dying, waiting in the wings because all my
Yeah,
kids are either married or about to get married. And I'm like, okay,
yeah.
let's get these ceremonies out of the way and let's get working. Okay. Because
Get on the watch. You're on the clock now, kids.
they
Yeah.
are,
My
all of them.
my my oldest grandson and his fiance just spent the weekend with us. And now I'm looking at being a great grampian, so I'm putting them on the clock too, you
Oh,
know?
wow. Congratulations, man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So if you think about the spread, I've got a grandson that literally, 10 and a half months from now could have a baby. And my youngest daughter has twins that she's set to deliver, which is part of that 18.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Holy cow. That's right. Oh, that's right. Yeah, they're not here yet.
They're not here yet.
Yeah,
August 26th, I think, is the doctor cutoff date. So
got you.
because she's having twins, they're on a shot clock.
With twins, I don't blame them. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
exactly. Exactly. A little more planning goes into that, I think.
Oh
Right?
my goodness.
Just a
I'm
little
so
bit.
old. I'm so old. I can't even handle. I'm going to take one photo op with a kid in each arm, and I'm going to go. Here's your kids. Bring them back when they're out of diapers.
There you go. There you go. All right. So obviously you got the nickname Grampian because of all these stats. But you know what? Hey, tell everybody, who is Jim Tracy? What are you about, brother? And how'd you get involved in everything you're doing right now? Just tell everybody a little bit about you.
Well, first of all, I'm not so bold as to give myself the Grampian name. It came from my grandson Wes, and I actually beat him at a card game, and we were in a lake cabin, and he Wes is a really competitive dude, and he stands up and he throws the card down. He says, "You're not Grandpa," and I'm like, "What?" You're not champion. I'm like, wait a minute. And he said, you're Grampian. And he got that West smile on his face. And that just stuck. And that's the moniker that I just love and I'm happy to wear. So that was where the name Grampian came from. And it has really attracted a lot of attention from people. And I'm just very grateful for it. But who is Jim Tracy? Wow, I'm a product of a rural kid upbringing in a little town in South Dakota, and I was kind of always a pretty shy and reserved kid because I stuttered a bit as a child, and but as I grew, people kept investing in me, and that's really where the stories from Building Men came from. But you know, I was a kid who really, most people would have written me off as a youngster. But there's some people in the rearview mirror that they believed or they saw something anyway. I don't know what it was, but they believed in me, and I'm also going to grab the credit for marrying way above my pay grade. And that is another big piece of who I am. You know, I got married at 20 years old, and now I've been married for 45 years. So, yeah, if you're gonna do it well, do it right, and do it forever, man. It's it's the only way to fly. So, between that and I was really driven at work, and then I was like 28 years old. I came to a saving knowledge of Jesus, and that changed my life. And there's just so many different aspects to what has happened through that it is really there's so many things and so many people who formed who this old dude is that I don't get really any of the credit, man.
I mean, I love all those anecdotes. That's fantastic. But it's a
Yeah,
really good point. You know, who you are is so much sort of amalgamation, summation of all the people you surround yourself with. And
yeah,
you really have done a great job of putting like quality folks in those positions, like
yeah,
marrying well, and having great relationships with your kids, right? And
yeah,
I mean, 18 grandkids, that's not a family who, had a bad upbringing.
yeah,
That's a family who really enjoyed being a family and wants to continue being a family. So
yeah.
congratulations to that too, because that's legacy building, brother. I mean, that's big.
Well, you know, it really didn't start. It didn't really start with me. That legacy. If you go back to my grandpa Brown, man, he had like these. Um, I will say almost proverbs of wisdom that he passed along to us, and sometimes they were business, sometimes they were personal, but they always kind of revolved around family, and that went even through the in-law side of my family. My father-in-law. He was the guy who said, "You can do this. Oh, you can do this. I have faith in you." And it didn't matter what I was doing. I mean, I came up, I was getting ready to graduate from college. I wasn't going to go to college. I was a welder when he met me, and I was a welder. And I looked at him and I said, "I'd like to marry your daughter, sir." And he said, "Oh, good. Where are you going to school?" And I'm like, "Bro, anywhere you want." Like, that's the price of admission. I am all in. But I was a kid who'd never taken algebra. So, I mean, he built a tremendous amount of confidence in me, and he should have been pretty skeptical.
Wow. Wow. So the welder wasn't good enough, huh? It wasn't going to
Um,
make it.
I don't, you know, my father-in-law had 3,400 employees as the general superintendent of the Duluth, Mesabi and Iron Range Railroad, which at that point was a subsidiary of U.S. Steel. He was a corporate man with a great job. He went through the Minnesota, hey, no, this dude, he went through the business school and the engineering school at the University of Minnesota, got 2 degrees in 3 years while playing
Nice.
varsity baseball, and he was married. I mean,
That
if
bar
he
is set
tells
pretty
you
high.
something, you kind of listen. Yeah, no kidding, right? How are you going to live up to that?
Yeah. I mean, that's something. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. The
He got drafted, in fact, by the Cincinnati Reds. And he said, "There's no money in this baseball. There's not a future in it. So I'm going to be an engineer." And he moved and he started his first job was with it as an engineer for Caterpillar Tractor because it was too unreliable to be a professional baseball player.
Wow, right? I mean, that poor guy was just born a couple of decades too early.
Oh, dude, I'm in the Reds organization from day half.
Right. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. We didn't get to talk about this last time, but I know that you build, family related businesses. I know we're going to get into all this and everything, but
Hmm.
is that something that you promote and kind of, push and foster with all of your kids? Is the college experience, or, is it more of a, where do they fit in life?
Yeah, I have never promoted college to my children. I look at their skills, talents, and abilities, and I try and look at their dreams. And one of the things that's really cool about entrepreneurship is that, and I know it's a trite saying like "do what you love and you'll never go to work." That's actually not true. If you love people who you work with, then you never go to work.
Yeah,
And so my son Ryan came to me one time and we started the first business legacy, well, actually the first successful business, Legacy Telecommunications. We started that basically to keep him safe on communications towers. And so the reason we started the business is because his mother and I loved him and we didn't want him to die.
yeah,
And that's always a good motivator. But he came to me one time and he said, the reason I want you as a partner is because you love me more than money. And I was like, whoa. Now, uh, one would often think that maybe your boss should love you more than money, but it's not always true. Sometimes in some organizations, your boss loves the company, loves the money, loves the position, loves the power more than he loves the people. And that's a business that I would tell you is on the decline. And if you look at a business that's growing forward, they're more worried about culture than they should be worried about the bottom line. Because if you take care of the culture, they will take care of the bottom line. And then it's a
sure.
lighter lift, especially for like if you're a senior manager, there's something that we lost, and we lost it in the 80s, and it's love your people. It's now not, I mean, when I consult with businesses and I do and they bring me in, they're like, we got to find out what's wrong. I'm like, you don't treat your people well. Let's start with that. And if you generate trust and and a good culture has to begin with trust. It changes everything. You know, one of the things that's really funny is like you meet with so you get in a business and you're talking to people and they're looking at you and they're going, "What do we do?" Like you're this genius that walked in the door and you're like, "Okay, let me ask you a question first. Do you trust one another?" And they're like, "Yeah." Okay. Is trust given or is trust earned? And the old people side of the room, they're like, "Oh, trust is earned." And the young people is like, "Oh, no, trust is given." And you look at them, you go, actually, you're both right. Because if you trust me before I earn the trust, you've given me grace that I cherish. If I earn the trust before you give it, you look at me and you go, I respect that dude because he put in the effort beforehand. And if you look at the American business today, you can't really give or receive respect until you actually have an emotional attachment with that individual. That means like, hey, I would do something for you just because you're you, not because you can do something for me.
Right. I mean, I assume that you find that that really doesn't exist in most places today.
I think it exists in as a commodity in large businesses. You know,
Hmm.
you hear the IBMs of the world say, "Hey, you're part of the IBM family." International Business Machines is the former name of that. And I don't know anything about the IBM culture anymore, but they used to wear Brooks Brothers shirts and Brooks Brothers suits and white starch shirts with red or blue ties. And if you dressed right, acted right, played the right country clubs, you were part of the IBM family and you got stuff. You know what? It wasn't about it was that was being part of a team, but there wasn't a family there. And so small businesses that start out as family, you start out with two, three employees or a bunch of family gets together, you start doing the right things start going well, and pretty soon you're more worried about being a corporate culture than you are about who brought you to the dance.
Nice.
And if you think about a lot of people come to me and they say, "Hey Jim, we need to fix our culture. It's not like it used to be." I'm like, "Okay, First question, what do you want it to look like? Oh, I'm not certain what I want it to look like. Well, what did you want it to look like when you began? And if you think about the process of returning to your dream, that's what we do something called the culture revival blueprint. And it really is. It's a plan. If you're going to build a house, you better start with a piece of dirt, and then you better put a foundation up before you start framing, and then you better have your framing done before you start finishing. You're following a plan. Same thing is true as reviving a culture.
Hmm, interesting. So, I mean, we kind of skipped over the part that people do call you to do this. This is one of the things that you do is you go and you consult, right? With
Well,
because you and I
yeah.
just jumped right into it. Because
That's because our conversation flows. It's kind
right,
of it's kind of a beautiful thing. We just sit here and chat, and people
I
actually
love it.
like it.
I know. I got to remind these listeners that this is kind of a continuation from the last conversation. It's on me, but you do this for a living. I mean, companies call you for your opinion to like come in and do this, right?
I think they call me for my experience.
Hmm.
And if you look at the value that's created, those lessons that come through me are those were training by trauma. And I learned most of those the hard way, you
Yeah,
know. So yeah, I think they value the experience that I have,
for
and
sure.
if I can't bring value, I don't want your paycheck.
I'm curious since we're talking about this particular topic right now.
Yeah.
Every company I think I've ever worked for has said, "Oh, family." Right? They've
Hmm.
all claimed that there was a family. I worked
Yeah.
for a company one time that it was one of the biggest talking about family, and the owner had started it from bootstrapping it, ground up,
Yeah.
whole nine yards. Right? It was a lot of good feels, during the
Yeah.
orientation, and I almost died working for that company. I was in a hospital, really and truly almost died. I'm not exaggerating.
Uh-huh.
Not one person even called me or came to see me in the hospital or even sent me a
Mm.
card. I didn't even get like the corporate, hey, wishing you well thing.
Yeah.
What they did was they put me on medical leave the day they heard about it
Wow.
to make sure they didn't lose any money. And I was
Crazy.
like, wow, I
Yeah.
mean, wow, that's family for you.
Wouldn't really do that to a good family member. Maybe
Holy cow.
maybe you were the in-laws.
It kind of felt like it.
You
But
know,
my
I
question based on all that is, if I may, is how do
Yeah.
you, when you go in there, how do you kind of discern between we really do care about these folks, or I'm
Mm.
supposed to care about these folks, so this is what I'm going to say.
Two stories. First one, we had a guy that worked for us by the name of Daniel, and we were pretty young in the process, but he actually made a terrible mistake, and he put a nail gun up next to his kneecap and pulled the trigger, and he required knee surgery, and his dad was pretty far away, and his, I think, fiance at the time or girlfriend, she wasn't family, so they wouldn't let her in, and so anyway, he woke up from surgery, and the first thing he saw was my face. And the reason that he saw my face first is because I took the time um, to to understand what was happening and know that he was alone. And so you have to teach your leaders to know their people. And that happens even when you come. And the second part of that story is people ask me what the most important thing I do for a living is when I was CEO. I had closing in on 200 employees. And the most important job that I had was sitting down once a month and writing out by hand a birthday card for every single employee. And a lot of times, if I knew them, it would involve some interaction that we'd had over the years that I would remember or recite or whatever. And then if I didn't know them, I would let them know something that I wanted for them, whether it be success in business or family or on a crew or on a job or whatever. And so the most important thing I did was communicate my heart through the written word to those people. Now, I had people that were actually, addressing and stamping it, but it was a handwritten card. And I had people come up to me, sometimes in near tears, saying how much they appreciated that letter. So if you're a CEO, it's not against the law to love your people. When I approach a business, most people. Think especially a business of any scale, a business that can afford to bring in a consultant.
Mhm.
Most people will walk up in and they're going to go up into the C-suite or the corporate seat or the ivory tower or whatever you want to call it, and they're going to talk to the leaders and say, "What's the problem?" And I find that they don't know what the problem is. They just know there's a problem. And if I walk in the back door, or if I go in the shop, or if I go in the warehouse first, or I go in the shipping door, I went in one business and I stood there for 20 minutes with people milling all about. I was a stranger. I had no identification, and my badge was not out. And I wandered around their warehouse for 20 minutes before somebody even asked me who I was and why I was there. And if that's not indicative of a problem, and so you tell me what's wrong with that business, and I'm like, nobody told them they should care. And so they don't know that they should actually care. That I mean, if I was doing industrial espionage, I would own the place by now. And so if you go in, talk to the people, don't talk to the process first, don't talk to the product first, don't talk to the C-suite first. Talk to the people who are actually doing the work because they're the ones that make the money.
Yeah,
The rest of us are overhead. All we do is we're a cost. We're not a revenue generator.
right.
So we need to talk to people who are actually doing the work. It doesn't mean we have manufacturing or service industries particular, because if they don't do a good job serving, then you're out of business. You don't just know it. You just don't know it yet.
Do you find you get a lot of pushback on that kind of thing when people are like, okay, so what's wrong with my company? Come on in, tell me what's
Mm.
wrong with my company. And one of the first things you do is say, you don't treat your people very well. I mean, that's
Well, I
kind of
mean,
a personal, smack, right?
yeah. As a person who walks into a business to try and help,
Hmm.
I find that transparency fosters credibility. And if someone comes to me and they say, "Oh, you're wrong about that," I'm like, "Okay, how am I wrong?" Because I just like uh, I should be saddled with the burden of proof about finding what's wrong with your business. You should be saddled with the burden of proof about telling me why that's not so. But the favorite question of mine, across all questions, is if what you were thinking or what you were believing were not true, would you want to know? So if what you were
Wow.
believing was false, would you want me to tell you? And I've actually had people say, "No, I don't want to know." I'm like, "Okay, I'm out.
Right,
I can't help you.
right.
There's no way I can help you. If you want to believe the lie, just keep drinking that Kool-Aid, man. It'll go well for you."
I love that. That's a great way to start. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, if we're going to do this, let's do this. And if we're not, then you know what? I'm out of here.
Yeah. If
Because,
they can't be honest with themselves, how are they going to be honest with their people?
yeah, for sure.
Especially if there's cash flow problems in a business, and your employees don't know, you should like let them know, hey, we should really conserve cash because the economy is difficult, because interest rates are up, because there's 20 different problems that you can say that would cause a cash flow issue. You want to try and solve that in the accounting department? Let's not do that. Let's not do that. So economists will tell you that you can be prosperous. Accountants will tell you the only way to be prosperous is to cut.
Right.
And you cannot scrimp your way to prosperity. It will never work.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Now, when you go and you approach a company and they're considering bringing you in as a consultant, I know you have a lot of experience with, a lot of different things.
Mhm.
Is your experience that gives you that credibility that people want to draw upon? Is that largely entrepreneurial, or did you have a big, corporate background that I haven't heard about yet?
I did have a bit of a corporate background, and I was able to. So, um, learning from mistakes is my specialty.
Oh, we're getting somewhere now. Uh-oh.
When I was in my early 30s, and I came into a business that was kind of it was a half a million upside down when I started on April 1st, which is April Fool's Day. If you think about that, it's kind of a predictor of success, right?
There you go.
Um, and uh, and it was largely a revenue culture issue, and we were able to turn that around in 8 months. We were profitable by the end of the year by just a little
Wow.
bit, but we were profitable by the end of the year, and we were growing. And so, but we landed a very large Japanese customer, and very soon, within a couple of years, 65% of our business came from Japan. And that customer from a single customer. And that customer came to me and they said, "We love you guys. We love you so much. We love your product so much. We decided to duplicate it. This is your contractual 30-day notice." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness." And so when something like that happens, you begin to figure out, I better figure out a way to throw a wrench on this, or I'm going to go lay off 65 people.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a good idea. I think
No.
if you train and you love your people, you go find a way to fix it. So in 30 days, listening to the Pimsleur language system, I learned to speak Japanese. And within 30 days, I was on the ground. I drove my family absolutely nuts. So when you're driving around, it doesn't matter where you are, you're always listening to the Japanese language and you're repeating it. You'll hear and hear and repeat ad nauseum, and your family begins to despise any notion of riding in a car with you, which that can be a good thing too. But
Right.
I landed on the ground in Japan, and I immediately started going to competitors of that company, and they looked at me and they're like, "How did you get here?" Taxi, which is the Japanese word version of taxi. That's they got their actual word taxi from us. And so they were like, "But you're an American, Nihonjin, and you speak or Amerikajin, and but you speak Japanese like a native. How that doesn't happen." And what it did is it engendered my respect for them by learning a little bit of their language. We replaced that business within about 3 months
Nice.
and then grew it. And then we had more than one customer.
Yeah.
Um, so when I walk into a business, some of my first questions when I get to the offices is like, "Okay, let's look at your customer lists." And you can get a long ways by hiring new customers or firing old customers, you know?
I, I love that. Um, Thank you for answering that question. I appreciate that. I really didn't
Yeah.
know that about you, so I
Yeah.
appreciate that. You have had quite a bit of success in the entrepreneurial side, of course. And
Yes.
one of the things that you talk about is starting family-led businesses. So it's you and members of your family that have done
Hmm.
this. And I know
Yeah.
that, like you and your son, for instance, had a business that you
Yeah.
started together. Um,
Yeah.
was that how else has it worked? Has it always been you and your son? I mean, are you two like out there,
Um,
killing it, Lone Ranger and Tonto type thing, or are there other family members involved in what you do?
my wife acts as the chief advisor,
Good
and
choice.
and well, every so Ryan and I did a telecommunications company, and we had the specialty and we had the excellence, but she had the detail orientation to keep us on track.
Nice.
And I was like, the revenue monster, let's grow. And Ryan, but we have to grow in a way where we can control the growth. We made a decision early that we were going to grow at 15% per year, and we were going to return 15% earnings on all of our growth so that we could finance it ourselves. And so after 20 years, we have no debt. I mean, we had some zero point 0.0 GMAC truck loans, but that's the only debt we had. Ryan came to me one time and he said, "Hey, our auditor and our accountant, they're like, dude, you need to go get a big line of credit, like 600 grand, so that you can grow and grow faster." And I looked at Ryan and I said, "Do you know what would happen if I had access to $600,000? Dude, I would spend it. And then they would want it back and they'd want interest on top of it. And then we would be a slave to the lender. And so let's just keep doing
Oh,
what we're doing." And at the end of, when you grow it from two people to 175 or however many it was at the end, and four locations. All of a sudden, people are going, "Wow, you did that without debt?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we're too dumb to borrow money." But we did the same thing in our real estate business. Owning real estate is a blessing. Having a mortgage is a curse.
Big
Um,
difference. Yeah, big difference.
so we bought smaller pieces of real estate that needed some love, and then we helped them through our own elbow grease. I remember we bought a building in Ritzville, Washington, and it was an old airplane hangar. And there were multiple parts of it that were just wrong for us. But it took a sledgehammer and a bit of elbow grease, and a little blood and sweat. And I would put crews out, and then I would go to work, put on my nail bags, and I would, knock down walls and tear out drywall and do that kind of thing. And that happened in Ritzville, Washington. It happened in Three Forks, Montana. It happened in Gig Harbor, and we ended up owning a 22,000 square foot building that they call it the Glass Palace. Um, and it's the old headquarters for Pacific Telecom. And when we got it, it had been vacated for 3 years, but through a lot of elbow grease and some good fortune and my wife's vision, that became what we call mailbox money.
Nice. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's a large array of businesses that you guys are involved in, so to speak.
hmm
Nice, nice.
And they all
Um,
started because someone that we knew needed something that we could supply, or sometimes we thought we could supply, so we rolled the dice a little bit. And if you care enough, there's not very much that you're not able to do.
that's great. I love that. The in building this with family. I mean,
hmm
obviously, it can be hard working with family. Everybody knows that, but there's a lot of positive to working with family, and
mm
it seems like that's something that is a real vision or of yours
Yeah.
to keep doing. What's your purpose behind doing that, other than just building great companies and making good money?
Um, I was taught very young. I was right out of college. I went to a work for a man by the name of Leroy Lindell, and he's one of four guys born in 1925 who told me that I could, should, that I was able, that he was a confidence builder. And he sat me down. I went from the warehouse to I would learned in the warehouse to estimating and purchasing and to inside sales, and then finally I graduated. I was going to go out in sales, and Leroy sat me down on a Friday and he said, "JT, um, show me your business card." And I handed him my business card, and he looked at it and he handed it back to me. He said, "Whose name is on that card?" And I was like, "Oh, gee, that's my name, Leroy." He said, "I'm sorry. It's my name on that card. And when you leave this place, you represent me. So, you're going to leave on Sunday afternoon for Des Moines, Iowa to go call on John Deere Tractor and J.I. Case and all these different large original equipment manufacturers, and you're representing me. So if I ever hear of you stepping out on your wife, or if I ever hear of you going into a bar alone, I'll fire you." Out of fear and respect, I said, "Sir, yes, sir." Some of the best advice I ever got. When I create a business, I create it for the good of the people who work there and for the benefit of the customer who we serve. And if I can keep my focus on those two things, we're probably going to be all right.
Nice.
Yeah.
We need a lot more of that.
Yeah.
We need a lot more of that in the world.
Yeah.
That is unfortunately a rarity, for sure. The in building it with your family, um, you are building kind of a legacy, are you not?
Yeah, that was the name of our businesses, a couple of them anyways, Legacy Enterprises and Legacy Telecommunications. But sometimes the family bailed me out. My daughter graduated with a degree in biblical counseling, and she was headed for China to work in an orphanage. And at the same time the orphanage folded, my generator, we had a business that did standby power. My generator division was struggling, and was struggling because there was not enough structure there. And all of a sudden, I looked up, and my daughter was moving home and needed a job, and I needed some organizational help. And if you've ever been around mechanics, having a biblical counselor care for them just is natural. They need that kind of love. And so she added structure and love to a business, and all of a sudden, boom, it turned around just like that.
Culture.
So
Boom.
my family has bailed me out more than my vision has helped them. And
Nice.
that goes for really all five kids and my wife, and even some of the grandkids have worked for the business, and that's really been wonderful when you see a multi-generational response. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it really,
Yeah.
really is. It's very rare in
Yeah.
today's world. So it's special.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that I really love about what it is you do,
Yeah.
because there's just that lasting legacy effect and it impacts your people, your family,
Yeah.
sort of first and foremost. Love
Well, let
that.
me
That
tell you a quick story before you go
please.
on, because
Yeah.
my son and his son, my grandson, started a business called Canine Meats, and they actually manufacture dog treats with organic cattle organs that are freeze dried with no preservatives. And so this last weekend, as a matter of fact, last Saturday, Ryan called me. He said, Gus is going to be in town. Why don't you go on him to with a sales call to a retailer and see how it goes? And so I'm able to go in and coach my grandson on how to sell. And that goes all the way back to Leroy showing me how to do the right thing. And so as I look at my son, I'm so proud. And then I look at my grandson because the apple didn't fall too far from the tree, and then the acorn fell off that looks just like the second one. And it is just an amazing, gratifying, wonderful, and boy, you know what? There's an old saying that says, I almost burst with pride. When I saw my grandson actually promoting his product to a retailer, and the retailer was just like, and then they asked the kid questions. There's a 22-year-old who's going, "Oh, I'm sorry. The difference between our product and the one you mentioned is that we do not have preservatives." And this lady was just like, "Oh, I want it." Yeah, and he was like it was like fishing in a barrel.
Nice.
It was awesome. Hey, folks, if you'd like a dog treat, go on caninemeats.com.
Hey,
Shameless plug for a grandson.
hey, send me the link. We'll put it in the show notes.
There you go.
Absolutely, man. We're all about family here.
There you go.
I love that story. That's again, I love that. That's why you're doing what you do. You've been called the curator of culture, and you've already kind of talked about that. But you exercise that in your own family as well.
Yeah.
So
Like any nickname, I've been called some bad ones. But that one, I came to a client who was outside of our industry. There was like an industry that I like. I went to interview them at a restaurant before they were saying, "Hey, we'd like you to come in and like we want to." It's like here we're going to send you a retainer. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Like I don't even know what you do. But I went in there and I sat with them at the office. And then I left and I came back and I went out. They have a manufacturing facility. I went to their manufacturing facility and I'm like, so like, what are you doing? Like, and this was a machinist, and he's like, I'm making the best fill in the blank part, fill in the blank product. I'm making the best that can be made. And I'm like, oh, no culture problem, at least not with that guy. And so, but I found an organization that had ownership. But prior to coming in there, you should really focus in like a laser beam on if you can help. And he came back to me afterwards and he's like, dude. So we finished up a very short consulting gig, and he came back to me. He's like, I want you to know that you are the curator of culture. And I was like, curator. Is that like a mortician? He said, no. He said, that's Latin for to care for, like the curator of a museum. You are charged with the care and all of the good things that can happen. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not really a museum guy. And he's like, no, no, no. You're the caretaker of culture. And I'm like, okay, I'll own that.
Nice. Sounds like
It's one
something
of
that,
those good names.
right. Sounds like something they'd be introducing you at a boxing, event or something. The curator of culture, the king of sting.
Yeah. MMA, there's less rules.
Right. I love that. As you've, kind of been doing what you're doing here and you're building your family and you're building your legacy, um, and even your story about your grandson, right? I mean, everything really does follow a theme. And then you write a book called Building Men.
Uh-huh.
And so, where does the book come from? What's the book about?
Okay, Building Men is a collection of stories, and I started, and it's almost chronological in nature because I start with my grandpa and I move all the way to my grandkids. And if you think about it, my grandpa was born in 1903. My youngest grandkids so far will be born in 2025. That is
Wow.
122 years of generational experience. In every and I could have wrote a tell-all and told you all the bad stuff, but there's just no joy in that. And so what I did is I said, here's the people who invested in me when they did not have the necessarily the time or even a good reason. They just said, hey, I want to come alongside this because this kid might actually end up being something. This business might actually end up helping people. These efforts might yield some type of a return that goes far and beyond financial or numerical measured gains and so but I also looked at it and I thought, wow, I've got all these stories, and these stories can be a gift. So while I wrote the story to the listener or to the reader, I wrote them for my grandkids because it's a hit by a bus plan. If I get hit by a bus today, those two babies that are in the womb right now, they're going to read this. They're going to know a little bit more about me, and they're going to know a little bit more about why we did what we did. And so, and they're going to know a little bit more because each of the character traits is defined in 20 chapters. And those character traits are like my grandpa. I'm gonna go to him right. He's kind of my go-to if you haven't been able to tell. But he was unwavering, and he was unwavering in so many areas of his life that you think of unwavering, you think, well, maybe he was stubborn. Well, there's a component of that in there, but he was usually right. And so that was one of the character traits. But there's many others like leadership and compassion and yeah, there's a guy I talked to him this weekend. He had some heart difficulties, and I called him and I'm like, Al, how are you doing? Et cetera, et cetera. Well, the part that talks about him is valor. He is a mighty man of valor. So anyway, there's 20 chapters with 20 themes that all reflect a character trait that I found to be incredibly valuable in my life.
Nice. And it's for men then, it sounds like, since it's building men. Yes?
I originally thought so,
Okay.
but we hit number one new release in Amazon in single parenting, and I was like, "Whoa, so this is a big curveball for me." And then when it came out on Audible, it was number one in business mentoring and number one new release in business mentoring on Audible, and I'm like, "Holy Toledo!" This has got it's got some more use than I originally thought. And so, but I mean, one of the things is trust. There's a lot of women who have been in contact with me, and especially in the review areas or in the emails, and that what they talk about is trust and how valuable that is. Well, that's a great lesson for us men, but it's also a great lesson for the people who we partner with, whether they be wives or girlfriends, because trust is both given and earned. Back to that.
Both, exactly. Both given and earned. I love that.
Yeah.
That is really interesting. Really interesting. Um, if you don't mind me asking, a couple of times today and in our last interview for one of my other podcasts, you brought up your faith a lot
Mhm.
and your daughter. Was it biblical counseling?
Biblical counseling. Yeah.
Counseling.
Yeah.
Um, does faith play a pretty big role in your life? And I don't mean to offend or anything. I'm just curious.
No, it plays the biggest role out of anything. I mean, if I get to the end of my life and I get to go to hell, it's really a bad deal. I love the people who approach their faith in a very transparent way. I've heard a lot of options where you could, I could, I could go be a Buddhist. I could go be a Mormon. I could go be a follower of Islam. But I haven't ever heard of anybody else that loved me enough to die for me. And because all I got to do is I believe that in my heart and confess it with my mouth, and I get a whole bunch of forever with a Savior. And if you guys got a better program, I'm all ears. I haven't heard one yet. I'm just waiting because nobody else said, "Hey Jim, I know you're a loser, but I love you enough to die for you." I'm like, who would do that? Well, only someone with enough power to do that. That's the ultimate sacrifice, man. And somebody will sacrifice for you. It's like, dude, I'm I'm all in. So that's number one. They talk about faith, family, flag. Well, that's the real order for me: faith, family, and flag.
Nice. Nice. I
Yeah.
appreciate you fielding that question. And like I said, I certainly wasn't trying to overstep, but it just,
Oh no, man,
heard
I
it and
love
heard
it.
it and heard it. So I said, I think it's okay to ask him this question. So
Yeah.
since we are, talking about family and building legacy and everything else, it sounds like you've, really instilled those beliefs in your children too. Was that a concerted effort with you and your wife?
You know, when I was building those businesses, in many parts of it, especially in the early days, I was kind of an absent father, and so my wife gets all the credit where that's concerned. But I got to tell you, I was traveling a lot one time. At one time, that corporate career. We went from one loser plant to four plants, two acquisitions, and then manufacturing and selling in Japan, and so I literally started the week in Seattle, and I went Salt Lake, Phoenix, Denver, and Washington D.C. And
Wow.
I was on my way back from Washington D.C. over the top. I could look out the window. I remember exactly. I could look out the window and I could see Chicago O'Hare not O'Hare, but Chicago, and I was headed for San Francisco to catch a hop over across the pond to Tokyo Narita. And I looked at my watch and I thought, man, I'm missing my daughter's swim meet. I quit.
Oh,
And that was the thing that turned my motor towards more than revenue, more than money, more than position. And my wife had been like going, this is great. This is, the money, the prestige, my boss came to me one Christmas party and he said, "This is the first plant that's ever done $1 million in the history of our industry in one single month. Here's my gift of a Rolex to you to still have it." Here's my gift of you. I would never buy a Rolex for myself, by the way, but he said, "Here's my gift to you for doing that. It's a Rolex watch." And so we were kind of like that. We were a pretty good looking pair of somebody in America who kind of had it all. But the price that I was paying was too high. And I credit a wife who came alongside me and encouraged me, but also encouraged me in the right things. And yeah, that's the most important decision I ever made was about my faith, and the second most important decision was who I was going to hitch my wagon to for the rest of my pea picking life.
Nice. Well, your faith probably had a little something to do with the second one.
Well, no. Actually, I got married long before that. So I got married at 20, and so the faith didn't get, it wasn't even in the picture. The only thing I cared about was making 100 grand before I was 30. And so, and don't focus on the wrong thing.
That's
Sorry
right.
about that. I thought I turned that volume down, bro.
Oh, you're good. I didn't hear anything.
Okay.
You just outed yourself. You didn't have to tell me any
Okay.
of it. We're all good. I appreciate you doing. I never heard that story, obviously.
Yeah.
So you were missing your daughter's party, and you just said, you know what, I'm done.
She had a swim meet,
Swim meet,
and
swim meet.
our kids, and here again, that's my wife. My wife is like, I'm like, get that kid in there, have him play football, and all of a sudden I got a kid who plays football, but then he after the football season he goes on the swim team and he said, I thought I was in shape, and then I started swimming. You swim 100 laps in a pool, you're going to find out what bad shape you're in a hurry.
Right.
And so we ended up with two kids that were swimmers. One was and another one who was a water polo player, and a couple football players, and a few equestrians. And but those are all discipline sports. Which again, I look at my wife, and precision and discipline are pretty much two hallmarks of her existence. Yeah.
That's really great. It's I I got party confused with your meet a minute ago because that's my story.
Oh, okay.
Was my daughter's birthday party when she was 5. And so I was like,
Hmm.
okay. And it just triggered immediately when I heard yours. So again, I apologize.
No,
But
I am that impresses me more than you can know, because it's really difficult to walk away from something that you're really winning at.
yeah, yeah, it really,
And
really is. Says a
but it
lot.
also points to your priorities, and that message speaks loudly to your family.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of building that legacy too, is that the kids trust you because they of what they see every day. They know that you gave that up in some capacity. They may not
Yeah.
fully grasp it, but they get the idea that you're more present at that point.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but as I stepped away from that, I mean, like all of a sudden your standard of living changes. But if I
Yeah.
had not stepped out in faith to walk away from that and say, listen, I'm gonna draw a line in the sand here. My family's more important. I never would have started Legacy. None of the other stuff would have happened because I was kind of dumb, fat, and happy.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. God's great about waking us up out of that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's amazing. I love that. Okay, and in the middle of all this, I know you have a podcast too. So tell everybody
Yeah.
briefly about the podcast. We covered it a lot on my other show, but just for the folks on this show who don't listen to the other
Yeah.
podcast, so tell them
So
about your podcast.
yeah, I started doing when our employee count got high enough where there were people that I saw in our shop floor and I didn't know their name. It kind of shocked me, so I started doing something called Legacy Radio. We had a 15-minute a week call-in program where everybody talked to. We did it live. We talked a little bit about the risk there, but that we merged that company into a partnership with 5 other companies, and that kind of grew into another more of a podcast looking thing. So it went from kind of audio, which we called Legacy Radio, to On Radio, and that went to On Radio was a video program, and I really liked it. So when I retired out of that business, took on the Grampion, and that's Grandpa Chats with Champions. And we talk with people I learned so, Rory, when people come on your podcast, you turn into a sponge. You know this better than anybody, man. They bring all this
Yeah,
great information, and you get the gift of just sitting there and absorbing all this wisdom and knowledge. And sometimes what I find is the most interesting parts are not those dopamine Super Bowl moments where you get the 20-second rush, but they're the grind that it took to get there and the stories that surround the winning of whatever endeavor they're in. And it's just been a wonderful I can't I just interviewed a guy who was Thunderbird 1 of the United States Air Force demonstration team. Netflix just did a series on him and the Thunderbirds
mm,
on May 5th it rolled out, and then I thought, man, I'm going to do this. It's going to be an awesome 30-minute podcast. And 2 hours later, I'm like, okay, we got to stop. My audience might not be able to take this. They're going to have to go to the bathroom and they can push pause, but I cannot.
Nice. I understand. No, I do. I
Yeah.
understand. We get to the end of a lot of podcasts, and it's like, oh, I have to end it, but man, I could sit here for
Yeah,
another hour.
yeah, exactly. You know, the truth is that doing a podcast has probably made me a better human being. And I find that as one of the greatest rewards that I can
Hmm.
actually tag on to the Grampion podcast. So,
Nice. Because of the
yeah.
stuff you've learned and the people you've met.
And again, there's enough negative people out there in the world right now. It's like, okay, this is the biggest surplus of all time. So you want to go find out something bad about somebody, just turn on the news, turn on the internet, whatever. But if we can keep it positive, and that's one of the things I super admire about your podcast, is that we always turn it towards let's help people get somewhere, go somewhere, do something that is going to benefit them. So, hey, man. I don't give them out often, but there's a salute.
Well, thank you for that. That means a lot. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Well, I do try to do that. With
yeah,
all of my shows, something positive should come from all of it. But
yeah,
that's why I started mine.
yeah,
So
exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
What made you actually pull the trigger and start yours?
I missed doing it. I really did. I missed doing it, and so because the podcast on radio, it turned into a kind of industry podcast. I mean, we had people that were suppliers of ours and subcontractors of ours and even competitors of ours that says, can we like dial in? And so we just put it up on YouTube and all of a sudden it would started kind of going crazy. And then when I retired out of that business, it was like, oh, there's nowhere to go. So yes, there is somewhere to go. There's always you always have a choice. And
Nice.
so we just we started it out and we said we'll figure it out along the way. And it's been wonderful.
That's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. So you have 18 grandkids. So
Yeah.
how many of the grandkids are involved in the business right now? One so far? The sales guy?
Um, he's actually the inventor. He actually said, "Hey, my son runs also a ranch, which is a large grass-fed cattle ranch, and they butcher their own through a local butcher because it's got to be USDA approved, but they have these organs and so he would make a little dog treat out of them using a little freeze dryer, and all of a sudden he's like, "We have a lot of these." And so he came up with a way to process it. I mean, this is a 22-year-old kid who invented a way to process it with zero bacteria so it could go into a commercial freeze dryer and so they freeze
Wow.
dried dog treats and now they're talking to major retailers across the U.S. in very very select markets that he's very carving a very narrow but deep niche.
Nice. Sounds
Yeah.
like something I'm going to see on Shark Tank someday.
Here again, if you take money from other people, you lose control of your business.
That's
So
true. That's
I
true.
would I would tell you that it's probably not going to be on Shark Tank would want it. But here again, we did it without debt.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So it's a harder road when you do it without debt.
Yeah.
But it's also when we ended our telecommunications run in wireless, they said, "This is a cash-free, debt-free deal." And I'm like, "Okay." And they're like, "Oh, but you don't understand. So you have to pay off all your debt." And I'm like, "Okay." And they looked at it and they said, "Well, how did you do this without any debt?" I'm like, "One teaspoonful at a time. One teaspoonful at a time." Yeah.
Bring me that deal. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a harder road, but it's your road.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And not
nobody will
only
take it
that,
from you.
if you think about it, um, um, Dave Ramsey, who I love, he says, if you live like nobody else, later you'll be able to live and give like nobody else.
Absolutely.
And I found great truth in that.
Yeah. It's funny.
Yeah,
You and I are both fans. We both, answer the, how you doing question the same way.
yeah.
It's just
Better than I
better
deserve.
than I deserve, brother.
There you go.
Absolutely.
I want one of his coffee cups on his program, his podcast. He's got a I better than I deserve coffee cup. I think I've said it enough to earn one.
I mean, we just have to maybe tag him in this episode, let him know that we both would really love some coffee cups. See
There
if
you
maybe
go.
you never know. You got to
And
ask for the sale.
then you
So
can drink Freedom coffee out of it.
that's right. Yeah, I do drink that stuff. That's not a joke.
Okay.
That's
And
right.
what's the name of it again?
Freedom Hill Coffee.
Freedom Hill Coffee. Okay, that's
Yeah,
going on my list. You
I
know, I'm a
appreciate
coffee
that.
guy too,
I
right?
know it. That's what I'm talking about.
Hey, Freedom Hill Coffee.
At Freedom Hill Coffee. You got it. Go look them up. Check them out.
Bingo. And that's a
So
free ad from the Grampion.
I like that. I appreciate it very much. That's right. Well, they're going to get a copy of this episode. I'll make sure that we clip them that
Nice. Awesome.
too. Listen, I love talking to you. I could probably talk to you forever. As we kind of pull this towards closing things up, what do we have in the hopper? What's coming next? Are you getting another 5, 10 grandkids involved? I mean, are they inventing more stuff?
Yeah.
What's happening next for the Grampian that maybe everybody doesn't know about, but you want to release here on our show? Very special. Let everybody know.
One of the things that I find very gratifying as well is when I am able to share um, from a stage to more people. When you get to talk to an audience, um, it is so invigorating. Now, remember, I was the kid that stuttered, and when I got over stuttering, and so when I first was approached to try and speak to audience, I was absolutely terrified, but my dad made me do it. And the result of that is I had a little memory issue, and so I couldn't remember like deliver the speech like boom, 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 boom. And so my dad coached me. He said, I'd rather have you tell a story. And so I told a story from the stage, and people loved it. And I won a state prepared speech contest. And all of a sudden, I'm like this deer in the headlights with a gold medal around my neck. And I was like, oh my word, that was a rush. And so it sat latent for a few decades. But I became the chairman of a national trade association, and so I got on stage in front of 2,000 of my peers, which is a little bit of pressure. And I was able to, but it put me alongside people like Marcus Luttrell and Coach Lou Holtz, and I was able to speak alongside them. And I watched them as they prepared. I watched them as they delivered from a very close place. I spent time with them, and I saw really good speakers who were professional speakers. And then I saw celebrity speakers who were like, they're the reason they're up there is because they're a celebrity and everybody wants to hear the celebrity story, but the value they bring is literally minuscule. And so I work really hard to create takeaways that the audience can implement in their lives. And so, speaking on stage, I get to go. My wife had a stroke. Most people don't know this because she's fully recovered. But I get to go later this year, and I'm going to talk to a group of nurses. And what I'm going to do is tell them about my experience in caring for a stroke victim and how it changed me and the things that affected me that helped me care for her and what the nursing community did to support that. And so when I talk to groups, it is so gratifying, especially when you get a lot of people there. The more people that are in the audience, the bigger the preparation. And it's self-imposed pressure. But yeah, I do a lot of speaking from stages, and yeah, a lot of aviation stuff, and we've got 3 or 4 businesses that are starting to thrive. And so I get to give guidance now rather than to make decisions. And that is super fun. Yeah.
Nice.
Don't try that. That might hurt. I told you that was going to hurt.
Yeah, no joke.
That's that
So,
training by trauma.
so more speaking gigs? Is that what we're garnering from this? Is that what's coming?
The book has created opportunities that I did not expect.
That's
And those
fantastic.
opportunities to impact people, I've got some opportunities that, interestingly enough, I've got two inquiries last week, one from a men's group to like come and deliver this thing to a group of a few hundred men. And also a women's group came and said, hey, we have to know how to help our sons. And so those opportunities are crazy, but they're going to be a lot of work because I'm like my wife would look at me and say, listen, I'm dressing you that day.
That is great.
I don't want all those women thinking my husband went out dressed like this on my
Oh my
watch.
goodness. Well, congratulations. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That really, really is. I'm glad to hear
Yeah.
that. The book is obviously it's available audiobook and ebook and hardcover
Not
or
hardcover.
not hardcover,
I
but
wanted it. We really wanted it to simply be affordable.
mhm.
However, the next book coming out in there's another one coming out in February that the publisher especially is super excited about. That will be in hardback. It's a little bit more of a business coffee table book, and it's called Management by Cliche: Business Proverbs That Worked.
Nice. Do we
You're
have
the
a wait?
first teaser.
I appreciate that. All right, new book
I will get
coming.
you a copy. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Here's the scoop from Rory.
What up? I love it. Hey, every once in a while, right? We get to play journalist, as we're
Perfect.
podcasters. So that's fantastic. The no, that's great. Is there a waiting
Yeah.
list for the new book yet?
No, not yet. Not
Not yet.
yet.
All right.
We'll have a pre-purchase available probably towards Christmas.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right.
But
Well,
I'll send you an autograph copy just because you're more fun than pretty much any podcast out there, man.
thank you. I love that compliment. I'll take that
Yeah.
all day long. I try very
Yeah.
hard.
I don't laugh this much on them usually. So
That's such a sad thing to say about podcasting in general. You should be
we're
laughing. This is supposed to
we're
be fun.
feeding off one another.
That's right. You're supposed to be having a good time.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. All right, listen, as we kind of bring this together, Jim, you know I love having you on, and today's been great. We got to a lot of things that I had never heard before, and
Yeah.
really, I'm even more impressed now than I was before the interview started. So,
Yeah.
um,
Thank you.
as no, not a problem. As we kind of pull this together, is there anything that I didn't ask you? Is there anything that maybe we talked about you want to double down on, or just a leave behind nugget, something like that for
Yeah.
our audience? We got fathers and husbands listening here, guys who are
Yeah.
out there trying to kill it, and doing their best. Anything you want to say to them as we part ways?
Wow, there's for starters, on the Grampian, we'd say, hey, let's land this airplane, right? Let's land the plane. End
Yep.
of show. One of the things that has great value is those little nuggets that can steer you in the right direction. And there was a guy by the name of Dennis, and he was the principal at a school. And every day when his students walked in, he would shake their hand and he would say, just do the right thing. Just do the right thing. Day after day after day after day. And the kids, like any teenagers, they got a little sick of it. But when they got out of school and they had to make a decision, that repetition kept playing in their minds. And if we could encourage America to simply say, just do the right thing or just to choose the right thing to do, wouldn't it be magnificent? And a lot of people, like one time a story I told you before is they said, what if you don't know the right thing to do? Then just do the best right thing. And if you don't know what the best right thing is, you call Jim or Rory, we'll tell you. So just do the right thing. It's a really, really great piece of advice.
I don't think you can go wrong with that. I really don't.
Yeah,
So I appreciate you very, very much.
you as well.
All right. Legacy builder, the Grampian, host of the Grampian podcast, author of Building Men, Jim Tracy. Thank you so much again for being on the show. You're absolutely fantastic guest, and I just love having you on. I hope you'll come back again in the future, talk about your new book when it comes out, all these other things. Can we count on that?
You can.
Absolutely.
And thank you, Rory. It really is my pleasure.
Thank you so much. Folks, this has been another fantastic episode of the Power Man podcast. And the reason that we bring such powerful men like this on here with such powerful messages is because we are united in hoping and helping you to regain your power. to become a better provider, a better protector, a better leader tomorrow than you are today, to become a better father, a better husband, a better man tomorrow than you are today. And the reason that we want that for you is because you matter, you have value, and at some point, you have to believe it.
Mhm.
Until next time.